Deep space was quiet and endless, with only the faint hum of an old human repair ship moving through the darkness like a small insect in a giant ocean of stars. Inside the ship, Eli Moran sat in the pilot chair, checking the sensors for any sign of work or scrap worth collecting. He had been alone for months, taking small repair jobs and scavenging wrecks that no one else wanted. It was lonely work, but it kept him alive and far from the crowded worlds he had once called home. The screen in front of him flickered, and a strange signal appeared. It was weak and broken, as if something far away was calling for help. The signal came every few seconds and sounded almost like a heartbeat. Eli leaned forward, adjusting the controls, trying to lock onto it. His brow furrowed because he had never seen a signal like this before. He followed the trail through a field of wreckage. Giant pieces of broken ships floated in the dark. Some looked like human designs, but most were alien with strange curves and markings. The remains of a great battle were everywhere. Twisted metal drifted slowly past the windows while frozen bodies floated among the debris. Eli had seen death in space before, but this was different. It felt older and heavier, as if the silence itself carried the memory of the fight. The signal grew stronger as he moved deeper into the wreck field. Finally he found it. A small alien survival pod was wedged between two large pieces of metal. Its surface was scratched and burned, and one side was cracked open, just enough for air to escape. Eli's suit hissed as he stepped into the vacuum. His boots clamped to the metal as he made his way toward the pod. He forced the hatch open and looked inside. What he saw made him freeze. There was no body inside, instead a clear cylindrical container floated in the center, held in place by metal arms. Inside the container was something strange. A brain connected to a thin network of nerves and faintly glowing wires. Tubes of green fluid kept it alive. Small lights blinked along the rim, and a quiet mechanical hum filled the pod. The container's small speaker crackled, and a weak voice spoke through it. "Please do not leave me." The words were slow but clear, thanks to a translator chip built into the pod. Eli swallowed and asked who she was. The voice answered with a name. Alara. She sounded tired, as if each word took great effort. Eli checked the pod's readouts and his chest tightened. The life support system was failing. Power was almost gone, and the oxygen balance was unstable. He had maybe 10 minutes before she would die. There was no time to think. He grabbed the container carefully and carried it back toward his ship. Pieces of debris bumped against his suit as he moved. Each step felt slower as he tried not to drop the fragile device. Back on his ship, he placed the container in the medical station. The system hissed as it linked to her pod and began transferring power. Alarms blared in warning, but at least her vital signs stopped dropping. Ilara's voice returned. A little stronger now. She thanked him and asked where they were going. Eli explained that he was just a repairman and his ship was small but safe. She was quiet for a moment before telling him what happened. Her ship had been attacked by an unknown enemy. The blast had destroyed her body instantly. Only the emergency medical systems had saved her mind by placing it in this container. Her crew had all died. She had been drifting for weeks, waiting for anyone to find her. Eli listened but said nothing for a while. He had repaired ships and machines all his life, but never something like this. Never someone like her. He thought about the nearest station, but it was too far away. She would never survive the trip with her current failing systems. That left only one choice. He would have to find a way to repair her himself. Alara asked if that was even possible. Eli gave a small smile, though she could not see it. "I have fixed worse," he said, though in truth he had never faced anything like this challenge. He began running scans on her neural patterns and life support functions. The ship's AI flickered to life on a nearby screen and gave him a grim report. "Warning," it said. "Restoring a full biological body will require illegal biotech and forbidden cybernetics." Eli ignored the warning for now. His focus was only on keeping her alive long enough to try. Outside the ship, the wreckage drifted slowly in the dark, as if the battle had ended only moments ago. The strange heartbeat signal was now silent, replaced by the steady hum of the medical station. Eli knew he had just stepped into something far bigger than a simple salvage job. Somewhere in this frozen graveyard, he had found the one thing rarer than treasure in space, a life that could still be saved. But in the corner of his mind, a quiet unease began to grow. He could not shake the feeling that someone else had heard the same signal and might already be on their way. The hum of the medical station filled the small ship as Eli moved around checking cables and power levels. The strange alien container that held Ilara's brain was now linked to his systems. But the connection was fragile. Any sudden power drop could end her life in seconds. Eli had repaired ships with cracked hulls and burned engines, but this was different. This was someone's entire life in his hands. Ilara's voice came through the small speaker again. It was a little stronger now, though still faint. She asked where they were heading. Eli hesitated before answering. The nearest space station was a week away at least, and with her condition, she would never survive the journey. Her life support was too unstable, and the system was already pushing beyond safe limits. He told her the truth in his simple way. If they went to the station, she might not make it. But if they stayed here and he tried something impossible, she might have a chance. Ilara was silent for a long moment. Eli could hear only the faint hum of the machines and his own breathing. Then she said something he did not expect. "Do it. I trust you." That trust was heavy on Eli's mind. He was just a mechanic, fixer of broken metal and faulty wires. But he also had a hidden side. Years ago, he had built a small workshop on a lonely asteroid far from the official trade routes. It was a place he used for jobs that could not be done under the watch of the law. If he was going to rebuild Ilara's body, that was the only place it could happen. He set the course, and the ship's engines rumbled softly. The wreck field fell away behind them as stars slid across the windows. Ilara began to speak again, telling pieces of her story in a slow and careful voice. Her people had been traders, traveling between worlds with goods and knowledge. They had no enemies that she knew of. The attack had come without warning. A single flash of light had torn through the ship, and the next thing she remembered was waking in the medical container, surrounded by fire and darkness. Eli listened as he worked on stabilizing her systems. He adjusted the cooling lines and replaced one of the cracked tubes with a spare from his own ship's supplies. Ilara asked him about humans. She had met a few in her travels but never worked closely with one. Eli told her about Earth, about the crowded cities and the quiet wild lands, about the endless rain in some regions and the burning heat in others. He spoke of the stubborn way humans refused to give up even when the odds were hopeless. The hours passed and the asteroid coordinates grew closer. But the ship's AI broke the calm with a cold warning. Long-range sensors detect movement, possible pursuit. Eli frowned and checked the display. A small blip followed their trail far behind. It was too far to identify, but it was steady. Whoever it was had likely picked up the same distress signal. He kept this to himself for now. There was no need to worry Ilara yet. Instead, he focused on the task ahead. His workshop was hidden in the shadow of a jagged asteroid, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. It had old docking clamps and a small airlock connected to a cramped lab filled with tools, wires, half-finished machines, and strange alien components he had collected over the years. Docking with the asteroid always made Eli uneasy. The place was quiet and dark, and in the silence he could hear the faint groan of the rock shifting deep within. He carried Ilara's container inside and set it on the main work table, the lab. Lights flickered to life, revealing dust and shadows. It smelled faintly of old oil and metal shavings. Eli began scanning Ilara's neural patterns in detail. The data filled the screen with complex lines and pulses. Her alien biology was unlike anything he had seen before. The nervous system inside the container glowed faintly with energy. The translator chip continued to bridge the gap between their languages, making her words soft but clear. She asked if this place was safe. Eli told her it was as safe as anywhere. Could be in deep space, but inside he knew there were risks. To build her a new body, he would need parts and materials he did not have. He would need biotech that was banned in most systems, and cybernetics that came only from the black markets. He thought of an old contact named Joran, a dealer in forbiddens. Teku owed him a favor. Eli tapped into the encrypted comm line and sent a coded message. Minutes later, a rough voice answered. It was Joran. He listened as Eli explained the situation and then gave a long, low whistle. "You are walking into trouble, my friend," Joran said. "That girl you found, she is not just a survivor. Someone powerful will want her back." Eli felt his jaw tighten. He asked what Joran meant, but the man only replied, "I will send what you need, but be ready, they will come for her." Then the connection cut. The warning echoed in Eli's mind as he turned back to the workbench. Alara was watching him with the small sensor embedded in the container. Her voice was calm, but her words carried a quiet fear. "You are risking yourself for me," she said. Eli gave a short shrug. "Sometimes it is the right thing to do." Outside, in the cold black void, a faint signal pinged again. The pursuing ship was getting closer. The safe shadow of the asteroid might not hide them for long. Eli pushed the thought aside and began making a list of everything he would need to give Alara a chance at life again. The asteroid workshop lay in deep shadow, turning slowly in the cold emptiness of space. Its surface was jagged and sharp like the teeth of some great beast frozen in time. Eli's small ship rested in the docking clamps, and the airlock hissed as it sealed shut behind him. The lights inside the workshop flickered awake, throwing long, thin beams across the walls covered with shelves of tools and half-built machines. Eli moved quickly, carrying Alara's container to the main bench. He placed her carefully on a padded cradle and linked her life support back into the workshop's main power lines. The quiet hum steadied as her systems adjusted. She spoke softly through the translator. "This place feels old." Eli gave a small nod. "It is older than you think," he said. Years ago, this had been his secret place, a hideout for work that could not be done in the open. He had built strange prototypes here, spliced human technology with alien scraps, tested devices that were not legal in most systems. The place smelled of old metal dust and the faint tang of burned circuits. Every corner held something half forgotten. Eli began the scan again. This time his machines mapped every detail of Alara's mind and nervous system. The display filled with glowing threads and pulses of light. He studied them carefully, trying to understand how her alien biology might link with cybernetic parts. She watched him quietly through the tiny camera lens fixed to the container. Her voice was calm, but her words carried a note of curiosity. "Have you built a body before?" she asked. Eli shook his head. "Not for a living mind," he admitted. "But the idea is the same. Every body is just a complex machine. The difference is that this one has to hold you without breaking." He began sorting through a pile of components. There were carbon alloy frames from old combat drones, flexible muscle strands from medical exosuits, and storage tanks containing organic gel for tissue growth. The comm unit on the wall beeped once. A secure signal from Joran had arrived. Eli opened it, and the dealer's grainy image appeared. Joran's scarred face looked even rougher on the old display. "I found what you need," he said. "A bioframe compatible with alien neurolinks, plus a batch of growth tissue and some adaptive servos." He paused and leaned closer to the camera. "But you should know something. A War Clan ship has been asking questions about a lost survivor. They are paying a lot for information." Eli's grip tightened on the edge of the bench. He asked if Joran had told them anything. Joran shook his head. "I am not stupid," he said. "But they will find you if you are not fast." The link cut and silence filled the workshop again. Alara had heard everything. Her voice was quiet but firm. "It was them. They attacked my ship." Eli turned back to the work. He began assembling the skeletal frame for her new body. The frame was light but strong, with joints that could move faster than any human limb. He connected the muscle strands and tested the servos. The machine whirred softly as it flexed. Alara asked how long it would take. Eli did not answer directly. "As long as it needs," he said, though he knew time was not on their side, outside. In the black void, the sensors picked up a faint signal again. The pursuer had closed the gap, still too far to see clearly, but too steady to be random drift. Eli decided to lock down the workshop's defensive systems. Old turret mounts came to life, their targeting lights sweeping slowly across the asteroid's surface. Alara spoke again, telling him more of the attack. She remembered seeing a symbol painted on the side of the enemy ship, a black claw gripping a red star. Eli knew the mark. It belonged to a war clan feared across several sectors. They were raiders and hunters who never left survivors unless they had a reason. Eli worked faster. He opened one of the sealed cabinets at the back of the workshop and pulled out a small crate. Inside were components he had sworn never to use, high-grade military cybernetics, illegal in every civilized system, but they were strong, reliable, and exactly what Alara needed to survive whatever was coming. He began fitting them into the frame. The mix of organic growth tissue and cold alloy was unsettling even for him. Hours passed and the frame began to take shape. 2 arms, 2 legs, a torso reinforced with hidden armor plating. Eli set up a stasis tank nearby to start growing the outer layer of living tissue that would cover the mechanical skeleton. It would look almost natural once finished, but beneath would be a machine built to last. The ship's eye interrupted his focus with a sharp alert. "Incoming transmission, encrypted." Eli frowned and opened it. A distorted voice filled the room. "Return the survivor to us, and you may leave unharmed." Ilele shut off the message without reply. Alara's voice was steady. "They will not stop," she said. Eli nodded slowly. "Then we do not stop either." He went back to work, tightening bolts, connecting wires, checking the neural link interface that would one day connect to Ilara's mind. Every sound in the workshop felt louder now. The hiss of the air recyclers, the faint vibration of the asteroid turning, the quiet crackle of the growth tissue in the stasis tank. Somewhere out there in the dark, the hunter's ship was getting closer. Eli knew the moment they finished building her body might also be the moment they had to fight for it. He glanced at the container holding Ilara's fragile life and felt a strange determination grow inside him. She had nothing left but her mind, and he would make sure she had a chance to use it again. The asteroid's defenses stood in silent, watched their turret mounts, turning slowly across the black sky while the workshop's lights glowed faintly in the darkness. Inside, Eli worked with steady hands, but his mind kept drifting to the thought of the ship following them. The sensor showed it was closing the distance, inch by inch, as if it had all the time in the world. Ilara's voice came from the container beside him. She sounded stronger than before, though her tone carried a sharp edge. "That ship belongs to the war clan," she said. "I remember more now. They were after something we carried." Eli glanced at her through the corner of his eye. "What kind of something?" he asked. But she was quiet for a moment, as if unsure whether to answer. She finally said she could not recall the details, only flashes of memory. A data crystal hidden deep in her ship. A set of coordinates burned into her thoughts, and the clan leader's voice telling her she was too valuable to kill. Eli knew enough to understand that valuable often meant dangerous. Still, he kept working. The skeletal frame of her new body stood on the bench now, its limbs shaped and jointed, the growth tissue forming slowly over the alloy bones in the stasis tank. The cybernetic link points gleamed under the workshop lights. He tested each servo with a soft whir. The machine moved with almost lifelike smoothness. Suddenly, the workshop's eye spoke. Unusual activity detected in external systems. Possible intrusion. Eli spun toward the console. Streams of data filled the screen. Lines of alien code snaked through his defense systems like digital worms. The pursuer was trying to hack into the asteroid's controls. If they took the defenses offline, the workshop would be exposed. Eli's hands flew over the controls as he blocked one intrusion path after another. The code was sharp and clever, unlike anything from civilian networks. This was a professional hunter's work. He rerouted power to the core firewall and cut the external antenna array to slow them down. The lights flickered as the change took effect. Alara watched quietly, her voice calm. "You are good at this," she said. Eli gave a short laugh without looking up. "Fixing ships teaches you more than just engines." Still, the pressure in his chest grew as the enemy pushed harder. For every attack he stopped, another came from a different angle. He decided to use the asteroid's own mining systems as a shield. Powering up the rock drills caused heavy metal dust to fill the surrounding space. The particles would scatter scanning beams and hide the workshop for a short while. It was a trick he had used once before when hiding from patrols. It bought them time, but not much. With the intrusion slowed, Eli turned back to Alara. "We have to speed this up," he said. He increased the growth rate in the stasis tank, though it would strain the tissue structure. The organic covering thickened faster, wrapping around the mechanical frame like muscle forming on bone. The process was messy and uneven, but it was progress. Alara spoke again, telling him more about her homeworld. She described tall crystal towers that sang when the wind passed through them, oceans that glowed at night, and the festivals where her people floated lanterns into the sky. Eli listened as he worked, picturing a place far brighter than the shadows they now lived in. The I interrupted again. Incoming short-range signal, repeating. Eli tapped the console and the message played. The same distorted voice from before said, "You cannot hide. Give her to us and live." Eli shut it off without a word. His jaw tightened and his eyes returned to the frame. The workshop's sensors beeped again. This time it was movement. The pursuer was using small drones to scout the asteroid's surface. Eli switched the turrets to manual and fired short bursts. The flashes lit the darkness as the drones exploded in sharp sparks. But for every one destroyed, another took its place. Inside the workshop, Ilara's voice grew more urgent. "You are risking too much for me," she said. Eli did not look at her. "Sometimes the risk is worth it," he replied. The sound of the stasis tank filled the air with a steady bubbling hum. The body was nearly ready for basic activation. Not perfect, but enough to give her movement. Eli prepared the neural link interface. He would have to transfer her mind into the new body, soon, or risk losing everything if the hunter breached their defenses. The process was dangerous, even in ideal conditions. A mistake could sever her consciousness forever. But waiting meant giving the enemy a chance to take her. He checked the power reserves and aligned the transfer ports. Alara was silent now, watching him through the tiny lens as if studying his every move. Outside, the turrets fired again. The asteroid's surface shook faintly under the impacts of enemy fire. The hunter was growing impatient. Eli's fingers moved quickly as he made the last adjustments. His mind pushed away the noise of battle and focused on the delicate work. In the back of his thoughts, he knew that once Alara was in her new body, they would have to fight their way out. Somewhere beyond the wires and metal of the workshop, a shadow moved across the black sky. The enemy ship had drawn closer, its outline barely visible against the stars. Inside the small hidden lab, Eli stood over the stasis tank, the half-grown body before him, the cables ready, the choice clear. Time was running out, and the wires around them carried more than power now. They carried the weight of survival itself. The stasis tank hissed as Eli unlocked the clamps holding the half-grown body in place. Steam curled upward as the warm growth fluid spilled away. The hybrid form stood pale and unfinished, parts of the frame still showing through the living tissue. It was not ready, but they had no more time. Outside the asteroid, the turrets fired again, sending bursts of light across the dark. The enemy ship had moved closer. Its shadow now loomed against the stars like a predator ready to strike. Small drones zipped through the dust field, trying to find a path to the workshop. Eli wiped his hands on a rag and turned to Ilara's container. Her voice was calm, but he could hear the tension beneath it. "Are you sure this will work?" she asked. He gave a short nod. "No, but we do not have another choice." He began linking the neural cables from her pod to the ports in the new body's neck. The workshop's AI gave a sharp warning. Outer defenses at 60%, hull. Breach possible in 8 minutes. Eli kept working. His fingers moved quickly, connecting life support lines and energy conduits. The body twitched slightly as its systems began to wake. A faint pulse of light moved along the neural spine he had built. Ilara's voice grew softer. If this fails... Thank you for trying. Eli's jaw tightened. Save it for later, he said. His focus narrowed to the final sequence. The transfer would push her mind through the interface and into the synthetic neural web inside the body. It was like moving the soul from one vessel to another. If the signal faltered, she could be lost forever. He activated the transfer. The lights dimmed as power surged into the link. The translator fell silent, and a low hum filled the air. Ilara's container glowed faintly as streams of data pulsed into the new form. The body jerked once. Then again, fingers curled, eyes flickered open. The iris is still a soft blank gray as the system synchronized. Outside, the turrets went silent for a moment. Eli cursed and checked the console. The enemy had overloaded one of the defense relays. Power was dropping. The AI said, "Manual override required." But Eli could not stop the transfer now. His eyes stayed locked on the neural link display, watching the progress bar crawl forward. The asteroid shook slightly as something struck the surface. Dust fell from the workshop ceiling. The sound of scraping metal echoed through the walls. The hunter was using cutting drones to slice their way inside. Ilara gasped suddenly. Her new body shuddered. The gray in her eyes shifted into a deep amber glow. She looked around slowly. Her voice, now coming directly from the body, was quiet. "I can feel again." Eli gave a quick nod, but there was no time for celebration. He grabbed a blanket and threw it over her unfinished frame. "We have to move," he said. She tried to stand but stumbled. Her legs were strong but untested. Eli caught her and guided her toward the rear hatch of the workshop. "Follow me. Do exactly as I say," he told her. She nodded. Her movements were awkward, but already adjusting as her mind adapted to the new muscles. The AI spoke again. "Multiple breaches detected. Enemy boarding imminent." Eli hit the lock on the main bench, sealing his tools and unfinished work behind armored shutters. He led Ilara through a narrow maintenance tunnel, lit only by emergency strips. The hum of the asteroid's engines vibrated under their feet. A sudden crash echoed from behind them. The sound of metal tearing filled the tunnel. Eli knew the hunter's team had entered the main bay. He pushed Ilara forward. "Faster," he said. She stumbled again, but her steps grew surer. The synthetic muscles in her legs flexed with more strength. They reached the auxiliary docking bay where Eli kept a small scout craft. It was barely more than an engine with a cockpit, but it could outrun most ships in short bursts. He keyed the hatch and the small craft's lights blinked on. Ilara climbed inside, looking around with wide eyes. "It is so small," she said. Eli grinned. "Small is harder to hit." Before he could start the engines, the outer door controls froze. The console flashed a warning. "Lockdown active." The hunter's hacking had reached the system too. Eli cursed under his breath. He pulled open a side panel and began rerouting power manually. Sparks leapt from the wires. Through the thin hull, he could hear faint thuds as the enemy moved closer. Ilara stepped to the hatch and peered out. Her new eyes caught movement in the dim tunnel light. Shadows flickered, shapes moving with slow purpose. She turned back. "They are coming." Eli yanked the last cable into place. The lockdown light flickered out. He slammed the hatch controls, and the bay doors began to slide open. Beyond was the black void and the glow of distant stars. The scout craft's engine hummed to life, but just as they prepared to launch, a sharp metallic clang rang out. A hook-like device slammed into the outer door, locking it halfway. The craft shook as if caught by a giant hand. Eli looked at Ilara. Her amber eyes met his. She stepped forward, gripping the edge of the hatch with her new hands. The servos in her arms whined as she pulled. Muscles tightened, synthetic fibers strained, and the metal hook bent slowly under her strength. With a final snap, it broke free. The doors slid fully open. Eli hit the thrusters and the scout craft shot out into the void. The asteroid shrank quickly behind them, flashes of light marking the hunter's frustration. Eli set a new course away from the asteroid field. The stars ahead stretched into long silver lines as the small craft accelerated. Beside him, Alara sat in silence, her fingers curling and uncurling as if testing every movement. She finally spoke, her voice calm but certain. "I am ready for whatever comes next." Eli glanced at her and allowed himself a small grin. "Good, because they will not give up." The scout craft drifted through the cold dark as its small engines whispered. Stars slid past like silver dust. Inside the cockpit, Eli kept one hand on the controls and the other on a loose panel of wires he had been meaning to fix for months. Beside him, Alara sat still, but her amber eyes moved constantly, watching every flicker of light, every faint motion on the console. Her new body felt strange yet familiar, the synthetic muscles flexed under living skin, her senses sharper than they had been before. She could feel the hum of the ship's engine through the deck. She could hear faint static from the com even though Eli had muted it. She could smell the warm metal of the cockpit mixed with the faint scent of coolant. Eli glanced at her. "How are you holding up?" he asked. She turned slowly. "It is strange, like I have been asleep for years and just woke up somewhere else." He nodded. "That is exactly what happened, only worse." She tilted her head. "Worse?" He pointed to the radar. "Because they are still coming," the radar showed. Faint blips moving through the asteroid belt behind them. The hunter's ship was bigger, faster, and armed. Eli knew the scout craft could not outrun it forever. He needed a plan. He tapped a series of commands into the console. "We will hide in the shadow of a mining station ahead," he said. "But we need to prepare in case they find you." Alara flexed her hands. Her fingers moved with perfect precision, each joint clicking smoothly. She wanted to know how strong she was now. Eli saw her curiosity and reached under the seat, pulling out a steel rod. "Try bending this." She took it and applied pressure. The rod bowed easily, her eyes widened. "I could never do that before." Eli grinned. "Good, you might need to do more than that soon." As they neared the mining station, the shadows grew. The huge metal structure hung in the dark like a broken giant, parts of it dead and silent, other sections still faintly glowing from emergency power. Eli guided the scout craft into a docking arm and shut down the engines. The silence was thick. Only the soft click of cooling metal filled the air. They stepped out into the docking bay. Eli carried a small toolkit while Alara followed. Scanning the empty corridors, the station felt abandoned. Dust floated in the air, and every sound echoed too long. "Why is no one here?" she asked. Eli frowned. "Mining rights disputes, pirates, maybe worse. We do not have time to find out." They reached a control room. Eli started working on rerouting a signal booster. If he could send a false location to the hunter's scanners, it might give them more time. Alara stood by the doorway, still adjusting to her new senses. She could hear faint vibrations through the floor, far away but moving closer. She spoke softly. "Something is coming." Eli stopped and listened. At first he heard nothing, then a faint metallic scrape. His stomach tightened. "They found us." He grabbed the toolkit and nodded toward a maintenance hatch. They climbed through into a narrow shaft lit by thin lines of emergency light. As they moved deeper into the station, Alara began to test her limits. She could leap short gaps easily, land without a sound, and lift heavy debris with one hand. Each movement felt smoother, faster, more natural. Eli noticed and said, "You are learning fast." She gave a faint smile. "I do not think I have a choice." The noise behind them grew louder. The hunter's drones were inside the station now, searching the corridors. Eli led her toward a sealed hangar. Inside was a half-built cargo hauler covered in dust. "This could work," he said, "if we can finish it enough to fly." Alara walked around the vessel, running her fingers over the rough metal. "It is huge," she said. Eli nodded. "And it has shields, which we badly need. They began working quickly, Eli handling the wiring and engine systems while Alara lifted heavy parts into place. Her new strength turned hours of work into minutes. Soon the engines hummed with low power. The shields flickered weakly, but they were online. Eli grinned. We might just make it, before they could celebrate. A loud crash echoed from the far side of the hangar. The heavy doors buckled under pressure. Eli looked at Alara. Time to see what you can really do. She stepped forward, her amber eyes glowing brighter. As the first drone burst through, she moved with impossible speed, catching it by the arm and twisting until metal screamed. She threw it across the hangar where it smashed into a wall. More drones poured in. She darted between them, each strike precise. Her movements fluid like she had been fighting in this body her entire life. Eli kept working, boosting power to the shields. The cargo hauler's lights blazed to life when the last drone hit the ground. Sparks spilling from its broken frame, Alara turned to Eli, breathing steady. We go now. He jumped into the pilot's seat. She climbed in beside him. The hauler's engines roared, and the massive vessel rose from the deck. The hangar doors opened with a groan, and they shot out into the dark. Behind them, the hunter's ship loomed, its weapons glowing. Eli pushed the hauler's engines to their limit. The shields flared as the first shot struck, but they held. Alara gripped the arm of her seat and looked ahead. We can make it, she said. Eli's grin was sharp. We will. The cargo hauler surged through the darkness with its engines screaming. The stars ahead seemed to blur as Eli kept the throttle pushed to the very edge. Behind them, the hunter's ship followed, like a shadow, closing the gap with steady patience. Each blast from its cannons lit the void with white fire. The hauler's shields flickered under the strain but still held. Alara sat in the co-pilot seat, her eyes fixed on the display. They are faster, she said softly. Eli's jaw tightened. Then we need to stop running. He tapped commands into the console, changing their course toward a dense field of wreckage floating between two dead moons. The debris was the remains of an ancient fleet battle, shattered. Hulls and drifting weapons left to rust in the silence of space. As they entered the wreck field, the darkness deepened. Massive slabs of broken metal drifted past. Some were big enough to hide a ship the size of the hauler. Eli weaved between them with skill, keeping the engines low so their heat signature would fade. The hunter's ship slowed as well, searching. Alara leaned closer to the scanner. We could turn their speed against them, she said. Eli raised an eyebrow. How? She pointed to a massive, fractured carrier ahead. If we hide inside and they follow, the wreck could crush them when it shifts. Eli considered, then nodded. It is risky, but I like risky. They guided the hauler through a narrow breach in the carrier's hull. Inside was a vast hollow chamber, lined with jagged steel ribs. Faint light spilled in through cracks in the walls. Eli powered down the engines and switched to silent running. The ship floated like a shadow in the gloom. For a moment there was only silence. Then a deep vibration rolled through the wreck. The hunter's ship was entering, its engines rumbling like a predator's growl. Ilara's hands gripped the edge of her seat. Her new body felt tense, ready. Eli reached for the manual control of the carrier's broken bulkhead. The hunter's ship appeared through the breach, its weapons glowing faintly. Eli waited, counting each slow second. When the hunter moved fully inside, he triggered the release. The massive steel bulkhead groaned and shifted. Gravity and momentum worked together. The entire section of the carrier's hull collapsed inward, smashing against the hunter's ship with a roar that echoed through the wreck. The hunter's vessel reeled, sparks and debris spilling into the chamber. But it did not break. Instead, its forward cannons lit up, firing wildly. The carrier shook as beams tore through the metal around them. Eli swore under his breath. They are still alive. Ilara's amber eyes burned. Then we finish it another way. She stood and moved toward the airlock. Eli turned to stop her, but froze when he saw the look on her face. There was no fear, only calm focus. I can move faster than they expect, she said. I can get inside. Eli hesitated, then tossed her a magnetic grapple from the emergency locker. "You get one shot." She gave a small nod and sealed her helmet. The airlock cycled, and she stepped into the cold, her boots clamped onto the hauler's hull as she pulled herself toward the hunter's ship. The wreck around them groaned, pieces drifting loose into the void. She reached the enemy hull and used the grapple to lock onto a torn section. Pulling herself inside, she moved through smoke and sparks. The corridors of the hunter's ship were narrow and twisted. She moved quickly, silent as shadow. Her new body let her react instantly to every sound and movement. She reached the main engine core and saw the glowing heart of the ship. Without hesitation, she ripped a coolant line free, hot steam hissing into the air. Alarms screamed. Back in the hauler, Eli saw the hunter's ship begin to drift, its engines sputtering. He grinned and fired the hauler's main thrusters. Pulling away from the wreck, Alara emerged from the breach moments later, pushing off into open space. Eli caught her with the hauler's docking clamp and pulled her aboard. Inside the cockpit, she removed her helmet, her face calm but her eyes alive with fire. "It is done," she said. Eli glanced back at the radar. The hunter's ship was breaking apart, pieces tumbling into the wreck field. Then a final explosion bloomed, lighting the darkness for a brief moment before fading. They sat in silence for a long time, watching the debris drift. Finally, Eli spoke. "You saved us." She shook her head. "We saved each other." He gave a tired smile. "Then maybe we keep doing that." She looked out at the endless stars. "Where will we go?" He leaned back in his seat. "Anywhere that is not here." The hauler's engines flared again, carrying them out of the wreck field and into the open void. The stars spread before them like an endless ocean. Somewhere out there were dangers and enemies waiting, but also places where they could be free. As the ship disappeared into the dark, the last fragments of the hunter's ship faded into silence. The cold void closed around them once more, but this time they faced it together. Two survivors bound by more than chance, ready to face whatever came next.